Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Once again, this is Mike, and in today's video we're going to be looking at making a GUI based script to unlock 80 users. Right, so we're not going to have the conventional PowerShell script that somebody has to run in a console with parameters and input and stuff like that. Instead, we're going to make a script that's going to produce a graphical form, if you will. So we're going to be using the Windows Presentation Foundation, WPF, to put that together in Visual Studio. I happen to be using Community Edition, but any version of Visual Studio will probably work. And when putting this together using Windows Presentation Foundation, it does utilize XAML code, XAML, XAML code. So I'm going to be using a template to kind of turn that XAML code into objects that PowerShell can work with. So I do have a video showing how to do this, kind of a beginner video. So you may want to check that out on my channel. That's building a GUI-based PowerShell script using free tools method 2. Okay, where there is a download for the template I'm going to be doing, and also you can see the raw code for it. So the GUI script I'm putting together here, unlocking 80 users, I do also have a video putting a non-GUI script together as well doing this. This is in my Build a Script series and episode 3 for that, if you wanted to check out that video as well. All right? So basically the form we're going to put together, or the GUI we're going to put together, whatever term you want to use there. We're going to have some text box forms that we could fill out. We're going to use a checkbox. We're going to have output, and we're going to have a drop-down box for our different components here. Okay, so now you're going to see me draw out the form. Again, you could potentially draw this out however you like. This is just, how I might potentially be designing it. Okay. So with that being said, let me move on over to my domain controller here, which I'm going to be working on. So on the domain controller, I know you probably shouldn't do this, but it's a VM in a very small lab environment here that I, kind of author classes or make these videos through, if you will. So I have Visual Studio Community Edition installed on my domain controller. So I do not recommend that in a real life purpose at all here. So I don't want to give anybody that impression. I also have a few sample users in my Active Directory. So these are just random names made up here from a random name generator you can find on the internet. So I have a Kathy Klein, and you can see her account is currently locked. So if I wanted to unlock it, I could do that through here. And Bill Brennan, I also, no, was it not Bill? Dennis. No, one of these account. Oh, let's see. Aiden. Okay, Aiden was the other one I unlocked. I know I locked 2 accounts out here before I began the video here as my kind of setup. But anyway, so I have Kathy and Aiden as the accounts that are currently locked out. Just so it gives us, something to work with here. Okay. So the first step we're going to do is we need to draw out a graphical that we're going to want to use. And I happen to use Visual Studio for that. So you could use other things, but I'm again trying to stick with tools you can get for free. Okay, that's again kind of my hook here. So I just kind of start Visual Studio. We're going to create a new project. I honestly don't care where the project goes. So we're going to do, I'm going to type in WPF, and we're going to pick this listing right here, a project for creating .NET WPF application using Windows desktop and C, I don't know how you pronounce that, C sharp. But anyway, so give it a name. Again, you could call it whatever you want. I'll just maybe call this unlock. I don't care where it's being saved at. And I'm going to use .NET 6. That's the only option I have. So go ahead and select create. So that'll get us set up here with a graphical kind of starting place here that I can now start putting a form together. if I wanted to do that, right? So waiting for this to kick off here. You can see down at the bottom right here, you can see the XAML code. This is eventually what we're going to be moving into PowerShell. So wait for the designer to load, and we now have um, our GUI, right? And all of its splendor here. Not too fancy, right? All right. So first things first, you probably want to set, let's say, some settings on the main window itself here. So if you kind of highlight, so I'll just take the mouse and kind of just click anywhere in like the white area, you can see that it kind of highlights something, and it's highlighting the grid, not the window itself. So there is kind of a grid over the main boundary of the window. So if you kind of move your cursor around, you can kind of notice how I get like a blue outline up there. And if I click now, just single left click, I highlight the main window. All right. At which point you could come in here. Let's see, Solutions Explorer I don't need, so I'm going to close that. Let's close that. So I just want the big property area here. All right. So we could come in here and maybe adjust some of the settings here. So notice how it says like main window, right? So that would be the title right here. So maybe I'll do AD unlock, call it something, right? Um, so we could go put that in there. Notice you could do things like the text. So maybe I want the text to be like a little bigger, um, something like that. If I wanted to make it larger, so you can kind of, manipulate the main window, if you will. All right. So you can assign an icon to it. So there's a few things that we could do here. Let's see. So now I probably want to put some elements in it, right? So depending on how your Visual Studio is set up, mine, I have the toolbox as like a flyout menu, where maybe I can, set it if I want to pin it over there. So it's now there and you can kind of expand out common WPF controls and then start putting together how you want your graphical to look. Right. So for instance, let's say, and again, I'm, not saying that, there's one way to do this. There's certainly not. There's a lot of different ways to get this done. So what I basically want here is um, I'm gonna need a few elements here. So I'm going to need a checkbox. I'm probably going to need, let's see, I want a drop down. So that's going to be a combo box. I'm going to need a couple text boxes for input and output, a couple labels just to identify things, a button to run, stuff like that. So I'm going to need a few different pieces here. Right? So how you want to arrange those, how you want to add that in, I mean, there's definitely more than one option available here. So let's say, let me start putting some things together here. So maybe we'll go drag a label in here. All right. Um, so let that, I did, let's see, is that doing its thing? Okay, there we go. I was just thinking about it. Okay, so label, um, probably don't want to call it label, right? Just saying here. So maybe we'll call this, I don't know, label one. Content, right? That would be, let's say, all right, let's maybe put that as the contents there. Um, and so now you can kind of see that label there. And if you highlight it, you can then drag it around, okay, if you want to move it where, I don't know, where you want to locate it, right? So right now this is suffering from horrible performance here. Come on. So let's wait for that to kick in here. Okay, sorry about that, folks. I had paused the recording here just real quick. My VM was trying to download a whole bunch of updates, and it doesn't have internet access, so it wasn't doing very well with it, but it was killing the performance on it. So I stop that, and we should be good to go here. So as I was saying, you could take this label here, and if you select it, release the mouse, and then hold down the left mouse button, you can kind of drag it around where you want to put it. So maybe I want to put this, maybe up in the top corner or something like that. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answers for how you want to design. I could come over here on the properties, maybe make the font bigger, maybe like a 16 font or 18 font. Maybe if you don't like this, maybe I want Arial. So you can kind of make it how you look, how you like. All right, so now let's put a combo box in here. And the combo box is basically where the users are going to be that I want to unlock. So I'll kind of make that maybe the size of the label there, something like that. And then over here, I can adjust its font size if I want it to be bigger. And let's see, we're going to need to give it a name. You want to make sure every element you put in has a name to it, even if it's just like, I don't know, combo box one or something. So in this case, I'm going to call this locked users because that's ultimately what's going to be going into there. And then that name becomes a variable in PowerShell that you're going to use to access the methods on it. Okay, so you'll see that when we kind of bring this into PowerShell, how that's going to look. Okay, so I'll just hit enter to accept that. And now I've got a combo box called locked users, and I've got a label called just label one. Okay, the labels I don't really care too much. It's more important just to have the right text in there. All right. Again, I could highlight the combo box, maybe make it bigger, maybe highlight the text, maybe center that. So there's a whole bunch of different arranging things that we could do in here. All right. So let's see. So I'm also going to need a few more labels. So let's bring one up over here. And we'll call this label 2. The content, this would be password reset. Maybe something like that, password reset info. And let's see, probably want my font maybe 16. That's cool. And let's maybe arrange it. So it's maybe, yeah, maybe it's the same as that. So something like, actually, how big was the font on this? This was 18. Okay, so let's maybe set this guy to 18 as well here. All right. So again, you're just kind of arranging things to make them look nice. Part of making a graphical is, you might need to, all of a sudden become a designer, right? Let's see, we're going to need a checkbox, at least in the way that I envision this working. So the checkbox, I'll just call this maybe check one, give it a name. The content, check here to reset password. And maybe I want that to be a little bigger, like 18, like everything else. Cool, and let's arrange it. How about maybe a little closer? Yeah, like right there. That's cool. Okay, so I've got a checkbox. I'm also going to need, if I'm going to have the password be reset, we're going to need another label. So I'll put that in here. We'll call this, pick them up to label 3, and the content on it, Maybe enter new password. And let's see. So we'll close that. Change the font maybe to 18. Arrange this somewhere like there. We're going to need a text box because someone's going to need to be able to type in a new password. So this would be a new PWD is what I'll call this. And I'll leave it blank. I don't want anything in there. When they type the password, I'll just have it be the same font size. Maybe make it a little longer. Right, and then we could nestle this thing up right next to there. Maybe something like that. All right. And then lastly, I'll need two graphical elements. I'm going to need a button because that's going to basically kick off whatever the code is that I want to run here. And I'll just call this very simply button 1. And content unlock user. Right, put some kind of text in it. Maybe make the text a little bigger, like an 18. And let's resize the button. So it's maybe like something like that. And then lastly, we're going to grab another text box here. And this text box is going to be the output. Right? So like when I run it, I want the kind of feedback that it actually worked. Okay. So in the logic of the code I'm going to put in PowerShell, I'm going to generate that, and then I want that to output in here. Okay. So let's see. So we're going to call this output. Try not to put spaces in there. So we'll just do output box. The text, probably we'll stick with the 18 font. I don't want GUI. I want kind of a font that's similar to what you find in PowerShell console, like listed a console, like a with proportioned font there. And I certainly don't want text box as the actual text. I just don't want anything in there. All right. Now, in addition to that, there could be multiple lines of output in here. So I need to make a kind of multi-line box, if you will. All right, so a multi-line text box. So if we go underneath, gotta remember, there's a few things I want to check on. So underneath layout, I'm looking for, see this down arrow, you can kind of expand. There's more stuff in layout. And I'm looking for vertical scroll bar. I might want that, so we could set that to auto. Um, let's see, let's go underneath the text sections. Let's collapse layout, go underneath text, and again, notice this down arrow to expand more stuff underneath text. And notice this text wrapping here. We want to make sure that that's set to wrap, which it should be by default. And we want this accept returns to be on here so we could put multiple lines into our form. Right? So get those things set, and basically you're now ready to go. Okay, so if we look at our GUI, that's basically what it looks like. Right? So not too complex here. So kind of the logic of it is when someone's locked out, the user will be able to click this drop down, this combo box, and it'll drop down and it'll have just the locked out users in it. And if they just click it and click unlock user, the user would unlock. Okay, or they could separately click the checkbox here, put in a new password, and then it would unlock them, set their password, and set it so they have to change their password the next time they log in. All right, so that's in essence what the logic of this is gonna look like here. All right, so now, so that's done. Okay, so our graphical is kind of built here. So what I could do now is I can come down here, grab the XAML code down here, and do a Control A to highlight it, highlight everything, right click, I can do a copy, and then ultimately I want to move this into PowerShell. So for this particular thing, I'm going to be using the PowerShell ISE. I mean, you could use Visual Studio Code. Um, when I'm on, like when I'm in my consulting life, if I'm working on someone's server, they might not have Visual Studio Code. Okay, so in a lot of cases with servers, you don't add extra things in. I know, I have Visual Studio running here. Again, it's a demo in a sample environment, but for those of you that are, like Visual Studio Code's kind of the new thing, replacing the PowerShell ISE, well, you still might want to know how to use the ISE. So it's definitely something I still work with here. So let's bring that up. So Windows PowerShell ISE, and I'll run it as admin. Don't really need to do that, but it's just, again, habit I get into when doing stuff in a test network. All right, and I can paste my XAML code in there, and that's what we're looking at. All right, so I just kind of do a check here just to make sure before I close Visual Studio, I want to make sure everything has a proper name to it that I need. Okay, so like the combo box is locked users, the checkbox is check one, text box is new password, the other text box is called output box, and the button is called button one. Okay, so everything that's going to be like an action item has a name on it. Okay, so at that point, I mean, you could technically close Visual Studio. We don't really need it anymore. But if you wanted to leave it open, I certainly wouldn't hold it against you. All right. So now I need to go open my starter template here. All right. So again, this is available um, for download. It's not anything really fancy here. It's just basically a way you can add into that XAML code to be able to run this as a GUI. Okay, so again, this is all outlined in a video that I have up on my site. How to build a GUI. This is method 2. So this is using the exact same steps. And that video does have the download link if you want to get this code sample here. It's not the fanciest code in the world here, as you can kind of see. There's really not too much to it. All right, but what it's gonna do is I'm gonna take the XAML code and I'm gonna paste it right here. Okay, so you're gonna paste it on line 5. This code right here. So all of that's gonna get pasted into line 5, and it's making what's called a here string. Okay, so that's what this is. You have an at with an opening quote, an at with a closing quote. You're basically making that here string. All right. Um, and I just noticed there, I'm making sure that the quote there is actually came through correct. It looked like a weird font got in there for a sec there, at least in my stuff. But anyway, so make sure it's an at, an opening quote, then a single quote, and then a closing at sign. All right. So again, I could put my XAML code in here, Control V. All right, and it always adds that blank line at line 25. I normally get rid of that because I don't need it. All right, that gets the XAML code in there. And then, so that's being loaded into $input. So if you're curious, like what a here string is, it basically loads all of these lines of string data, text data, as a single object. So normally, if you like have multiple lines of text, each line becomes its own string object in PowerShell. Okay, so a here string doesn't allow that. So this all gets brought in as one thing, okay, one object, with the formatting intact, which is what we want. You also do the same technique if you're importing cascading style sheets, like if you're doing HTML reporting or something like that. Okay, so that's loaded into $input. So now we're going to go in and get rid of some stuff that doesn't work in PowerShell. So not all of the XAML code works. Like it kind of chokes on this like X colon stuff. So we're going to want to, get rid of that. So notice right here, there's a replace X colon N. It's going to get rid of that with just N. Okay, so in essence, it's replacing just the X colon part of it. It's getting rid of this line that has ignorable on it. Okay, so if you look like right here, that's not needed. Replacing this with this. Right, so it's doing a bit to that XAML. Then it's kind of recasting it in a variable as XML, loading it into a reader, um, casting it again into a form, and then that's what we're going to be working with. Okay, and then this right here is taking the XAML and basically creating a variable for each node that it finds in there into this section. Right? So that's how the variables kind of get created for the form related objects or checkbox or button, things like that. And then down at the bottom, this is how you call the form. So it's loading that form. So notice that variable's cast right there, okay, with this, and then calling that form to show it. Right? So if I go ahead and let me do a save as with this, because I don't want to overwrite my template. So we'll do a save as, and we'll just call this, how do we just call it unlock, right? Oh, I still have a demo file from something else, but let's ignore that. So we'll save this as unlock, and then I'm just going to go ahead and run it just to make sure the form opens. Okay, so let me do that again if anybody missed it. I'm just hitting the run button here, or if you wanted to come into a separate PowerShell console, change over to that directory. Okay, so notice there's my unlock and run the script. You do have to make sure script execution is enabled, so make sure you check your execution policy. I did not digitally sign any of this stuff, so my execution policy, if you look at it, get execution policy, I'm currently running remote sign. So all the stuff I'm making locally here will run perfectly fine. All right. So, and notice again that the script ran. So the GUI was created, right? So it's nothing in it. We haven't put any logic in it yet. Okay, but that's the first step. I want to make sure the stuff comes over from Visual Studio fine. Okay, so that's kind of the first area we're dealing with here. So again, all I did was take the XAML code from Visual Studio. So once I have my GUI drawn out, come down to the bottom here, just put the cursor somewhere down in the bottom XAML area here. I did a Control A and a Control C to copy it. Then came into here, Control V, there's your XAML code, right? And then pasted it into this template, right between input equals and then that closing one down there, right? So there we go. So now we need to make this do something. So I'm going to scroll down, and if you notice in the way that I made the template, and again, you can design your templates. If you want to take my template and run with it, that's fine. I certainly don't own any copyrights or anything to it. It's just basically some .NET code in here. Um, I have two sections kind of commented here. Code to run before the button click event and code to run when the button is clicked. Okay. Um, and this line down here is what's going to make the button click happen. Okay. So what do we need to start with? So the first thing I need is I need to populate that drop-down box. So again, if I run the code, notice I need to populate this drop-down box with the users that are locked out. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing. So that would be here. So that needs to populate when this script is run. Okay, I don't want to wait when the button is pressed because the button press is going to be the actual unlock event. So that drop-down box should be populated before that. Okay, so that's what we're going to put in there. Code to run before the before the button click event. So to do that, I'm going to go grab the users that are locked out. And you could do that by doing search AD account. And specifically, you're looking for locked out users. And then I want to just grab the user, like the SAM account name. I don't want like the whole thing. I'm just going to grab something. If you want to grab the display name, the SAM account name, the login name, the given name, whatever. You're going to grab a single property that's a string value because that's what needs to display in the drop-down box. You don't just want to leave it at this because this grabs an AD user object, or an AD account object, I guess I should say, and your combo box needs to display string objects. So I need to make sure that this pulls string objects out. So a few different ways to do it. I'll just happen to use for each object. And then the member name, so the property I want to extract out, I'll just do SAM account name, right? And so now I saved that in a variable, right? So now I'm going to take the contents of that variable and we're going to go run that through another for each, right? And in this case, I'm going to use the process block here because I need to call a method. So again, our combo box was called locked users. Okay, so that's what our combo box is called. So I'm going to go grab that, except I'm going to make it a variable. That's how we call the different elements. So whatever the name is, PowerShell is creating variables for them. And then we're going to call the add text method on that combo box object. Right? And then we're going to grab the current object that's in the pipeline, which is going to represent the users, each user that's in here, that would be the object in the pipeline. Right? And then this actually gives a bit, actually let's just run it like this. Okay, so let's save this and let's try um, bringing it into the console and let's try running it. So now, if you noticed in the background, it did load the Active Directory module. So for this script to properly work, you do have to have the Active Directory module installed wherever this script would run. Okay. If you don't have that as an option, the code inside of it, you could set it up to do remoting into a domain controller and just use invoke command lines. I'll do a sample of that somewhere down the road, probably be in a couple weeks, where I set up a GIA endpoint, just enough administration endpoint, where you can kind of incorporate that into it. But we're not doing that here, guys. So in this case, we're assuming wherever this script is going to run, the Active Directory module is installed. Okay. Now, if you install this on someone's computer, again, just having the Active Directory module does not give anybody permissions they should not normally have. All right, so just FYI on that. And if I hit the drop down, notice, hey, we've got people in here. All right, so I could select Kathy, I could select Aiden, and this is specifically set up to unlock one user. Okay, so if I wanted to do multiple users, I would set up different logic for this, but in this case, I'm doing one user. All right, so let's say if I wanted to unlock Kathy, so notice the two locked users, I can pick one, and now that is a selected value that I could call. Okay, um, so that's cool there. Okay, so at least that part's working. Okay, so we got that populated. Right, so now the user is picked, right? Now we need to unlock them. So what we're going to do is I'll put that in here, but I mean, you could technically put this code anywhere, but I'll put the code to run when the button is clicked. So what I'm going to do, the easiest thing to do with buttons is to associate a function with the button. So let's do function. And you could call it whatever you want. I'll just call my function unlock. How about that? And then open and close. So all the code inside of the function will run when the button is clicked is basically what my goal is here. All right. So number one, we're going to need to know the user to unlock. So maybe I'll call that account, ACCT, equals, and let's see. So dollar locked users, and I want the selected item, and we're going to call the toString method on it. So basically it's going to grab whatever was selected in the drop-down box and return it as a string and put it in that variable. So that variable is going to have my user that needs to be unlocked. Okay, so we're going to do that. So then we're going to put up a try-catch construct. So basically why I'm doing this is I want to have output, whether it worked or whether it didn't. And know that a try-catch construct, if any of the code in the try produces a terminating error, the code in the catch would execute. Okay? And wouldn't display all the red of the error message. So let's do this. So let's just try unlock AD account. And identity $ACCT. All right. And then let's do maybe $message equals successfully unlocked $ACCT. And I might throw another line of text on there, so I'm going to do a carriage return and a new line. So those are backticks, by the way. Those are not quotes. And then I'll close it with double quotes. So the reason why I'm doing a text string in double quotes is so this variable name will enumerate. All right. If I did single quotes right here, that would not. Okay. It treats the characters as the literal characters. Okay. And then backtick R is a carriage return. Backtick N is a new line. So you could do that if you wanted to kind of manipulate that text string a bit. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to need an if construct because I want to know if that checkbox has been checked. So we're going to do an if. I'll put my condition in there in a moment, my comparison, I should say, and then we'll have the if. Okay, so now what I'm looking for is if the checkbox has been checked. So what the heck did I call my checkbox? Check1. So if $check1 is checked. Okay, this is a difference. If for those of you that might be doing Windows Forms instead of the WPF that I'm doing here with the XAML, in Windows Forms, the method or the property on a checkbox is just called checked. In WPF, it's is checked. So that's one I have to make sure I remember because otherwise I totally mess that up. So if it's checked, this is going to return true. So that means I want this stuff to work here. So let's grab and put in a variable whatever's into that password box, which I called new PWD. So let's grab that. So $new PWD dot text. So whatever was entered into that text box is now going to go into this variable. All right. And then we're going to go and let's convert it. So we're going to do secure pass equals. I guess I could have probably done this all in one line, but what the heck? Get to see the pieces. Let's do convert to secure string as plain text force, and the string would be $pence. Right? So make that a secure string because I'm going to need to pass that to the next command that I'm going to do here, which is set AD account set AD account password. The identity, $ACCT, and we're going to do a reset, and the new password would be $secure pass. All right. And then also we're going to set AD user, change password at logon. We'll set that, oops, not do that, set that to a value of true. And the identity, again, $count. So basically with this if, it's going to grab that text value, make it a secure string, feed it to set AD account password, set the user so that they have to change their password at next login, and one final thing, we're going to take $message and we're going to do a plus equals because I want to append something to that string that I made up here. So I successfully unlocked the user, and now I want to say successfully reset password for account $ACCT. Okay, so something like that. So that's in that if. Let me kind of scroll a little bit here. And then if all that works, I now want to send that to my output box, right, which is called output box. Right, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do dollar output box dot text equals dollar message. All right, and then if it doesn't work, that's what's going to go in the catch. So all this is in the try. If all of this works, we're good. But if any of that stuff throws an error, in my catch here, dollar output box dot text, no, not tab index, text equals, oops, equals, let's say dollar $ACCT could not be unlocked. Right? Maybe something like that. So if everything works, we're going to get a 2-line message in that output box saying we unlocked and we reset the password if you elected to do that. And if it doesn't, we're going to put this in there instead, cannot be unlocked. So that kind of lets me know that there was something happening. Okay. So now, next step here, let's maybe put a bit of a gap here. Let's uncomment this part here. And what did I call my button? My button was called button 1. So let's go button 1 dot add click, and my function name that I want to run is just called unlock. All right, so that adds that click event. So when you click the button, it's going to do that. And we've got the XAML form, and we're doing out null because this will put a little output in the console from where you're running the script from. And I don't necessarily want that. All right. So that's cool. So let's see if we're cooking here. I don't see any weird squiggly errors in the ISE, which should show me my code's working. So I'll do Control S to save this, and let's see if it actually works. All right. So unlock, pick the user. Let's say I'll unlock Aiden. Let's just go for the gusto. Reset. What do I want the password to be? Let's maybe do something like that. It could work, right? Actually, let's do this. Let's do p at ssw0rd. It used to be an iteration of password in a lot of Microsoft classes back in the 2008 era. so let's do that, and let's hit the button and pray for rain. Okay, now notice it doesn't ask me like, hey, who you are, right? This script, even though it's a GUI, it's running under the context of this PowerShell session, which is running as an admin account. I'm literally logged in as a user called admin who is a domain admin. So you could potentially build other logic in here to, accept an alternate set of credentials or something like that. Again, I did not put any of that in here. All right. So I'm just kind of having it run under the context of the person who's logged into the computer launching the PowerShell console. So let's click unlock. Okay, successfully unlocked Aiden, successfully reset password for account Aiden. So everybody knows what that is right there. So if we go look, Aiden account, it shows the account has now been unlocked. Okay, you might be thinking, well, there's a checkbox there, but yeah, when the account's locked, like if I look at Kathy's account, you can tell it. See how it shows the account is currently locked. Okay, so then let's go, let me go switch over to that VM. So let's go and hold on one sec. Gotta find where that console is. There we go. Okay. And let's go try logging as Aiden with that new password. So you can see that's what I entered. Hey, the user's password must be changed before signing in. That's cool. All right, so what's the new password going to be? I'll just set it to something else. It's a secret. I don't want anybody to know. Hey, oh, it doesn't meet the history. Okay, let's put something that hasn't been seen before. And there we go. Cool. So that now unlocked the user, reset their password. When they logged in, they had to change their password to a new value, and everything is rocking and rolling. Okay, so that is working. So again, let me switch back over to my domain controller here, so we could again look at the code. And this was basically the logic of it. So I will take a copy of the code and I'll save it and link it in the description. So I'll throw it out to a download place that I have that I put my other stuff here. So if you guys want to download a copy of the code, feel free. And the template that we started with here, let me just kind of reload that again. The template that we started with, again, go check out that video that I have building a GUI script method 2, and that has a download link for this template that I started with. So again, I put my XAML code up in here that I got from Visual Studio, like right on line 5 there, and put my logic code that I want to run, code to run before the button is clicked. So this would be the code that ran when you first launched the GUI, and then code to run when you want the button clicked. So again, for me, that's the code I want to run before the button is clicked. This was populating that combo box with the drop down with the locked out users. And then I pick the locked out user, I hit the button, and then that kicks off this function right here. Okay, so clicking the button clicks off that function, which goes ahead and unlocks the selected user. So that's what this is doing there. That grabbed whatever user I picked out of that drop-down box and is running through the unlock process here. All right. Now, the thing to know though, putting this together, I'm, fairly literate here with Active Directory, so I knew what the commandlets were, right? So I didn't just, discover this just as I was making this video. This is, experience of working with Active Directory. So that's again, you might be putting a graphical tool together, but you still need to know what your base components are going to be. Okay, so if you don't know how to unlock a user, this is going to be a tough script to write for you. Like if I wanted to write a script that made, I don't know, made I don't know, an index in a SQL database. I guess I could do it, but it's not really my product, so I wouldn't be the best at designing that. Okay, so again, when you're putting your scripts together, you got to know what the base commandlets are that you're going to be using in there. So that might need a little research, that might need a little education, looking some stuff up, what have you. But anyway, so that's it. If I want to see it scrolled all, I can't show it all on one screen here. My screen's just not big enough for all of this code. But if you wanted to see the top there, that was the. Let me kind of scroll over here. Uh, Long lines there on the XAML code. I apologize. Um, then cleaning up the XAML. That's that right there. Then the code to run when the script first runs to populate the drop-down box. And then the code to run when the button is clicked. And then the actual adding the click event to the button there. And finally showing the form. All right. So we'll put some more videos up here that do different other graphical form designs. I think I'll do one using Windows forms as the next video, putting together like a help desk inventory type of script, something like that, and we'll take it from there. So any questions, comments, feel free to throw something down in the comment section of the video. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking and subscribing. Definitely helps the growth of my channel and is very much appreciated. So, and keep an eye on the description as well. I'll have the download link for this completed script if you wanted to just grab the code. And again, the template that I started from, this GUI XAML starter template, you'll find the download link for that in my other video where I describe how to put a XAML script together. So that's building a GUI script method 2. So have a look for that. Okay, so thanks everybody, and we'll see you in the next video.